This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our exclusive multi-state cannabis operator sponsor, Trulieve, one of the nation's top vertically integrated medical and wellness cannabis operators. With 50 local dispensaries, 14 cultivation sites, and 13 processing facilities, serving up more than 165,000 medical marijuana patients. You can learn more about Trulieve over at Trulieve.com, with Trulieve spelled C-U-R-A-L-E-A-F. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, January 13th, 2020, and you're tuned in to episode 864 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We kick off this week's news with a big headline out of California, where on Friday, Governor Gavin Newsom announced plans to consolidate the state's 3 regulatory bodies handling various legal marijuana business verticals into one agency. Governor Newsom also wants to simplify the way California marijuana businesses are taxed, shifting the points in the business cycle where excise taxes are collected. This is a good one to read in full, especially if you're involved at all in the Golden State yourself. Pop over to Marijuana Moment for all the details, including some initial reactions from a few California industry stakeholders. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Late last week, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem said she would not veto an industrial hemp legalization bill just as long as it meets a few requirements, which Governor Noem characterized as quote-unquote guardrails. Governor Noem wants law enforcement agents to be able to inspect all agricultural and processing facilities to ensure compliance and wants to ban the smoking of hemp flower. In addition, any legal hemp program would be required to be financially self-sufficient through licensing fees and taxes. South Dakota House Majority Leader Lee Quam had no doubt that an already drafted bill set to be introduced to the state legislature next week would stand a good chance of passing, as it meets most of Governor Noem's so-called guardrails. With South Dakota being one of the few states that has not yet passed legal industrial hemp legalization, it'd be good to see this prohibition finally fall. Again, if you need more on this, swing on over to the Boston Globe story by the Associated Press. The Intercept has our final top story today with a longer form piece looking at the outsized influence had by professional rich guy and conservative Howard G. Buffett, son of billionaire investor Warren Buffett, on the town of Decatur, Illinois, and its policy on allowing legal adult use businesses. As The Intercept is reporting, the younger Buffett is not a fan of progressive cannabis policy reform and has spent a lot of money over the years supporting local police departments, going as far as becoming interim sheriff. Decatur city council members clearly had that in mind as they were debating a proposed adult use dispensary for the city, organizing their opposition on the idea in deference to Buffett by email ahead of a public meeting on the proposal. This is a classic story of one super rich guy imposing his beliefs on an entire city. Read this story today. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Trulieve, one of the nation's top multi-state cannabis operators with 50 local dispensaries, 14 cultivation sites, and 13 processing facilities, serving up more than 165,000 registered medical marijuana patients. Trulieve wants you to live life well, which is why they cover the entire legal marijuana spectrum from Trulieve medical marijuana to Trulieve hemp and Yuku craft cannabis. That's also why Trulieve supports worthy organizations like the Veterans Cannabis Project, which works to expand access to medical marijuana by military veteran patients. Trulieve is helping to raise funds for and awareness of this very important group, which you can learn more about over at vetscp.org, spelled VETS. scp.org. And as always, you just need to fire up Trulieve.com for more on that company. Big thanks to everyone over at Trulieve for helping us keep our news lights running. All right, time for the Blitz. Last month, we reported on a stock short seller called Grizzly Research that issued a report accusing Florida-based multi-state cannabis operator Trulieve of a raft of nefarious activities in a bid to drive down the stock price of the company, thereby making profits on the short positions taken by Grizzly. New Cannabis Ventures has a good piece up detailing the lawsuit that's just been filed by Trulieve against Grizzly, accusing it of lying in its report so that it could profit on a price dip. There's a link in this one to a pointed rebuttal issued by Trulieve that's worth the click. Chris Kudialis over at Leafly has a good rundown on the state of Arizona and the various legal marijuana bills expected to be proposed this legislative session, which formally opens up today, as well as an adult use ballot measure. Arizona voters were one of just 2 states to vote down adult use legalization ballot measures back in 2016, and activists there have been hard at work ever since on a new push. Among the bills under consideration are one that would ban the pesticide Eagle 20 and another adding opioid addiction and autism to the state's list of medical marijuana qualifying conditions. Officials with Washington State's Liquor and Cannabis Board say they will be making some changes to how they operate after a report was issued by a consulting firm the board had commissioned, finding that Washington police were heavy-handed in interactions with cannabis industry professionals and tended to operate as if they were doing something wrong instead of helping them operate in compliance. Marijuana Business Daily is a link through to the full report, which I'd totally open up if I did any kind of business in Washington State. To Illinois we go, where the state is enjoying its second week within the ranks of progressive and reasonable states to have legalized adult use. But as the Chicago Tribune's piece details, just with every other newly legal state, there's still a lot of detail to be worked out for how the new policy affects jobs and employment, with laws still allowing companies to randomly drug test employees and to pre-screen job applicants with drug testing. Making marijuana legal for adults of age is just going to complicate the whole thing, hopefully to the point where most employers stop drug testing for marijuana entirely. Another good one to add to your list of stories to read today. Another story I would highly recommend opening up can be found over at Ganjapreneur, where Kara Whitestock covers so-called nano emulsion CBD products, which confuses the very real and groundbreaking scientific field of nanotechnology with the act of putting ingredients, including CBD, into a commercial blender and blending them up really, really well, a practice being called nano emulsion by some CBD marketers. This also ties into a story run by Leafly last year that found that a lot of CBD products have less CBD in them than labeled, with 3 out of 4 CBD waters tested found to have 0 CBD. I'm starting to sound like a broken record today, but this is a story that you really should read. There are a lot of scammy people in the world. It's always good to know what kind of BS to look out for. We have another marijuana moment, this time looking at the newly effective law in Hawaii, removing criminal penalties for the possession of 3 grams of marijuana or less. This is a baby step law to be sure, but it will keep a lot of people out of jail, so we're happy to take it. One thing I wonder about this, since eighths of marijuana are 3.5 grams, will illicit market dealers shift up their sales process so that they're selling 3-gram bags? You don't want to be thrown in jail for 3.5 grams. Our final top story today is a helpful one over at the Canalog blog that looks at the history of why we consider marijuana with less than 0.3% THC to be industrial hemp and plants with more than that to be federally illegal cannabis. As Jesse Mondry writes, it all goes back to Dr. Ernest Small, a research botanist who studied cannabis back in the 1970s and who set 0.3% THC as an inflection point between hemp and marijuana in terms of biological taxonomy. Dr. Small is still active in the research game and told the Winnipeg Free Press back in 2018, quote, "At that time when I did that study and published it, I had no idea that that would be used as a practical measure for countries licensing the amount of THC that would be permitted in order to grow it," unquote. You guessed it, you should read this story today. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Trulieve, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.